Well, today on CIA, Contagious Influences of America, we have probably one of the finest storytellers in media today, Brian Bird.
I mean, this guy has done it all. 30-year veteran of the Hollywood film and television business. He's a co-founder and partner with Michael Landon Jr. of Believe Pictures. I loved Michael Landon Jr.'s father.
You mean the angel guy?
Michael Landon, Little House on the Papa.
Oh, no.
Father.
No, I remember.
Little House on the Prairie.
He played Little Joe, right?
Yeah, he played Little Joe Bonanza, but he's also the dad on Little House on the Prairie.
But he was also what was that angel thing he did? Remember he was an angel?
I do remember that. I don't remember the name of the movie.
Yeah,
but I loved that movie.
Gosh.
And his son looks a lot like him, too.
Yeah, and he's an amazing producer, director. Well, we're not talking to him. We're talking to Brian Bird, but that's his partner.
We digressed.
Here's a really cool thing about Brian Bird. He's the creator and the executive producer of one of the hottest shows in all of television.
Yeah.
I know you love this channel. I know it's probably your favorite channel.
I watch it all month in the month of December. We're talking Hallmark.
Hallmark Channel.
Oh, my gosh. And there's a show there that I believe that David's involved with called When Calls the Heart. We're going to be talking about that TV series if you're one of the watchers. I will tell you this.
Now, wait a minute. Did you say that David's involved with?
No, he's not involved with it.
You mean Brian?
Yes.
Now you're
Brian.
Now you're trying to give me credit for Brian's work.
Yeah, I don't know. Because you always take credit for everything else. Why not? No, but I'll tell you, Brian, this show, When Calls the Heart, is one of my favorite shows, David. It's so wholesome. It's a show you can sit down and I could watch it with my granddaughter who's 10, almost 10, and I won't have to worry about it. And I'm going to confess something here to you right now. I live my life vicariously through Elizabeth and Jack's relationship. And you have no idea what I'm talking about, do you?
I knew that I was going to interview him. And I thought, you know what, I better watch an episode. And I watched an episode and I thought, wow, this is like TV when TV was real good, when it was real stuff, when it was about relationships and you get that warm, cozy feeling watching it.
Right. And if Hollywood doesn't take notice of shows like this, well, not just When Calls the Heart, shows like Touched by an Angel did really, really well. The Family Man. These are shows you're going to hear about when we're talking to Brian because he's been involved. And if Hollywood doesn't take notice that this is what we're starving for, our good, wholesome family shows that we can watch together as a family. We need something that brings the families together. And I believe let's use TV for something good by putting good, wholesome shows that families can watch.
So Brian is a 30-year veteran. He has produced and written so many shows, including Touched by an Angel, Evening Shade, Step by Step, The Family Man, and he's done a ton of pilots for ABC, NBC, Showtime. I mean, this is one of the greatest showrunners in the business.
His most recent writing and producing credits include the 2017 feature, The Case for Christ.
Oh, that was the one with Lee Strobel.
That's right.
That was the biopic kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. As a matter of fact, we're going to have Lee and his wife Leslie on CIA.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, they're coming up here in the couple of episodes from now. So here's my recent interview with television producer and writer and show creator Brian Bird. Brian, congratulations on the phenomenal success with your series. Wow, I'll tell you, I have not seen success like this in a couple of decades. I'm talking about the ratings, the numbers. You are just pouring it on. What are you doing? How did this whole phenomenon begin? But I want you to take me back a little bit. Share with me the backstory and tell me how you arrived to where you are today.
Well, When Calls the Heart is from New York Times bestselling author Jeanette Oak, who was sort of the queen of faith-based fiction. And Michael Landon Jr. and I partnered up on this project and took it to the Hallmark Channel because he had actually made several movies for them based on the previous books from Jeanette, the Love Comes Softly series. So there was a ready, active, excited audience for us at the Hallmark Channel. And we felt like nobody else was doing these kinds of projects, right? This is faith and family, chaste romance set in 1910 about a school teacher, Elizabeth Thatcher, who comes from her wealthy family in the East and goes west to teach school in a small coal mining town, a frontier town, and falls in love with a handsome Mountie. So that's sort of the log line of the show. But it's full of faith and the great virtues of Western civilization and the Bible. And so we knew that at that time, this was 2012 when we initially took it to the Hallmark Channel. We knew at that time that nobody else would even give us the time of day. But because of the success of the previous movies that Michael had done, we figured they would be open, and they were. And it was so exciting to do first a movie for them based on this book, When Calls the Heart. But they were just beginning to get the itch to get into the original series business at that time. And so they said, they tested the movie, and it tested very well. And they said, we're thinking of getting into 1-hour drama here at Hallmark Channel. Would you guys be interested? And we said, gee, let us think for a second. Yes, how high do we have to jump for that opportunity? So season 1, we made 12 episodes, and the audience just found us. They loved us. This is a Hallmark Channel is the only channel on all of cable that has had double-digit growth since we started our show. Now, it's not only because of our show, it's a factor, but they are just the only place that's having this kind of growth in all of cable. And nobody else has had that kind of growth anywhere. In fact, their ratings are in decline. And I think the reason, David, for this phenomenon is this. There's a vast underserved audience out there. They're starved to death because nobody else is providing them this kind of content. They're people who are cutting their cords. They're watching DVDs. They're watching old DVDs because they can't find anything that's not ambushing their family, right? This is a program, When Calls the Heart, that a whole family can sit down and watch together like the shows we grew up with, right? Where we could actually sit in a room together and watch a show. And that is a lost phenomenon to our culture today. It doesn't happen anymore. Everybody's off on their own little screens because everybody's niched out on their own little shows, and they're not having a common experience of watching television or having an opportunity to discuss these episodes. It's not because we're geniuses. This show came around at a time when nobody else was doing it. So it's that the math is as easy as this. We found an island, a pretty big island of starving people. We brought them food. They loved us for it. Yeah. And they showed up. And this show has had double-digit growth. I don't see it ending anytime soon at this point because the hearties, the show is When Calls the Heart. These fans.
And tell me about the hearties.
Yeah, they're Trekkies on steroids. And they're all people who are vastly underserved, and we're serving them. We're giving them something full of hope, faith, and love in very cynical times. And this is a show that the whole family sits and watches together, multiple generations. I haven't heard of that in a long time. Not since the show that I worked on called Touched by an Angel, which ended in 2003. I haven't heard of this phenomenon, since then. So the hearties now self-identify as hearties.
And those are fans.
They're fans. It's like Trekkies, but they're When Calls the Heart hearties. And they have grown to the point now where at least 500,000 that we know about self-identify in this way. And they are a community. It's church. I mean, it's unbelievable what's happening around our show, where they are having, every week, they're having hearties parties somewhere in the world. And this is not just the U.S. now, because Netflix has taken this show now to 30 different countries.
And I know the Hallmark Channel has their own streaming channel now.
They do. They have their own over-the-top.
It's like $5 a month, and you get all the Hallmark you ever dreamed of.
Absolutely right. So, we were smart enough when the hearties began to talk to us on social media in season 1. I mean, we were so busy trying to make the show that, it's like, I started seeing this chatter on Twitter and Facebook, and I said to Michael and my other partners, I said, guys, something's going on out there. We need to respond. We need to talk back to them. And so we did. We started talking back to them, and I got our cast to talk back to them. And I made a rule. I said, every Hardy deserves an answer of some kind, even if it's a retweet or a like or something on their social media. And they have rewarded us by being the most loyal fan group ever for this show. They love us. They follow us. They fly themselves to Vancouver for our own little comic cons we call the Hardy's Family Reunion. We've had over 2,000 people from as far away as China fly themselves to Vancouver and have a cast fan engagement, right? Like a Comic-Con kind of thing. And then we take them out to our fictional town, our set of Hope Valley, the next day, and they get to wander to their heart's content in all the sets and take selfies and have a great time. And we've done that now 3 years because people want access. They love the show so much they want to connect with it in some way. And so we thought, what better way than to invite them to come up to Vancouver where we filmed the show.
Well, you have done a lot of films that have really touched families and those of faith. Is this something that you set out to do? How did you begin your career? How did you end up on Touched by an Angel? And did it have that much impact on you that you decided that that's something you wanted to pursue?
Well, I was raised in the church. My grandfather was a pastor, career pastor. My dad was a pastor for a number of years, but my dad then morphed from being a pastor into being a DJ. He was spinning records, and so I grew up with this sense of media and ministry in my blood. I was in the pew every Sunday, right, consuming church and that content. I became a Christian at a young age and kind of reconfirmed my faith when I was in college in journalism school. So I went to school to become a journalist, and I was a working journalist for a number of years before morphing my way then into film and television back in the mid-'80s. And my first television script that got produced was an episode of that old show Fantasy Island back in 1984. I was just like 24 years old or something. And it was such a powerful experience to not only see my name, and have 25 million people see my name on ABC, but the idea of getting outside the box of journalism for me and writing and being able to, in a way, be a world builder, a terraformer of these worlds, as a writer was just so fantastic to me that I said, I got to continue to try to do this. And so I have been doing film and television for 30 years now, but I'm a believer in Jesus. I have been a Christian, pretty much my whole life. And I have always just felt like it's not about pounding people over the head with what I believe, but the best stories of all time and the best movies and best TV shows of all time have all been redemption stories. Mankind is wired for redemption. We just are. We want redemption stories, and it predates the Christian age. You could go back into the ancient mythology, right, of the ancient Sumerians or whoever you want to talk to, the men in the caves. They were putting redemption stories up on the cave walls. Because mankind has this hole in him, and he has these strings. We all have these strings running through our lives. They're violin strings, and they're tuned to these themes: courage, nobility, redemption, sacrifice, love, faith, hope, resurrection even. There were stories of resurrection happening in ancient Samaria, right? In their storytelling, in their myth-making. C.S. Lewis said that Jesus was the myth that became true, the true myth, because we were hungry for that story, right? And so all men All men want redemption stories. It's not about faith-based. It's about telling redemption stories. And by the way, the story of the cross is the biggest, the most important redemption story in the history of the universe. It's everything. It's the cure for everything. So I've never wanted to pound people over the head, but I have wanted to stir up deep cravings in them for the Creator and to move men closer to God with my words. I want, it's what I was born to do. It's the only thing I know how to do. I would be wandering around mumbling to myself in a train car or something if I didn't know how to do what I do. And I only stick to what I know how to do because I can't do anything else. But I do know that people are hungry for story. They're hungry for redemption stories. They're hungry for resurrections. Last time I checked, E.T. resurrected. Neo in the Matrix resurrected, right? Harry Potter had a resurrection. It's because we're wired for the story. And we keep repeating that story in our movies and our television all the time. So I look at all media as faith-based in a way, because we are yearning as human beings for those redemption cycles in our lives, right? And that's why they show up all the time, even with creators and inventors and geniuses who make this content. Even if they don't know it, even if they don't have a connection to the Creator, right? They're still doing it because they're wired for it.
There's somebody listening right now who has a story to tell, and maybe it's not in film or TV. Maybe it's to a group of people. Maybe it's to someone at work. Talk to that person about the power of telling their story, whether it's to one person or to millions.
Love the question. What do we all say as little kids when our parents are tucking us in at night?
Tell me a story.
Tell me a story.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the cave kids were doing that to their parents too, right? We eat story. Story is nourishment it's soul food. Story is soul food, right? And so story is a priceless commodity that everybody wants. It's why we're watching little tiny phones 24/7 consuming story. You do these incredible viral videos that go wild on social media because people are hungry for that. They're hungry for story. And I was working on a episode of Touched by an Angel late at night when probably 15 years ago, and I was stuck, and the imposter syndrome started to set in, and I was hearing all these self-tapes like, how'd you trick your way into this business? How'd you convince them to let you do this? You can't do this, right? And in television, there's no such thing as writer's block. It's the same thing as a pink slip. You don't get to call up the day your script is due and say, I'm just kind of having some trouble here and I'm working through it. But, tell the crew just to hang loose at $100,000 a day burn rate. That ain't happening, right? So the pressure was on me. I had to turn that script in the next day, and I had written myself into, figuratively speaking, into a tributary of the Amazon River, and I couldn't find my way back to the main channel, right? I was lost. And I just reached out to God. I said, God, what do I do? I'm scared. I have messed up here. I shouldn't have even taken this on. And I didn't, words didn't start typing on the screen magically, but I got a deep soul impression. And the impression was this: I was a writer, now you be one. And it was like, I got chill bumps from that. It was, what does that mean? And then all these verses from my growing up years and my Christian life sort of came to me. Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith. In the beginning was the Word, right? And the Word was God, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And also, it's not written on hearts of stone, but on hearts of flesh. And I realized that how did God choose to leave his revelation to us? in a big fat novel, right? That he and his story, history, is being written as a narrative through the cosmos, through space and time, and we're all characters on it. And and we all have one strand of that creative DNA in us, right? To do one thing, to do something that we're gifted at, that we're made to do, that it's our purpose to fulfill in this world. If I'm a writer and I'm made in the image of the author of the universe, that's a fantastic privilege and legacy. And so I just said, God, you know what? Dictate here. I will just type. Tell me what to do. Tell me what to say. I'll just type what you want me to say or what you want me to write. And you know what? I got through that script. I turned it in the next day. I figured it out. It turned out to be a pretty good episode, right? But I've never had a case of writer's block since then. And so for the person that needs to tell their story, they need to understand that their story is absolutely a treasure for the rest of us. We need their story. Story is testimony. Testimony is the story of our faith or of our yearning for faith. And we all need to hear each other's stories. So write it, tell it, talk it, speak it, whatever you have to do, but get your story out. It's everything.
What do you prefer? Do you prefer doing movies or TV shows? Because TV is like the hot thing now, right? I mean, all of a sudden TV's hip. Oh, it has been for a few years, but because of all the streaming but what do you, from a creative standpoint?
You know what? I want to do whatever gets me to the most eyeballs possible. And right now, TV can become that, for all of us in the storytelling mode. I love doing these movies. I love writing and helping produce The Case for Christ. And I have 6 more going now. But there is something amazing about building a following for a television show.
Yeah, because you really do establish a relationship with the viewer.
Right. And you get to tell a lot more of the story that way. If you have 10 episodes as opposed to 2 hours, in a movie. And my goal has always been, well, let me just say this. I have one of my sons was in a band when he was in high school, and it was an indie rock band, right? And so he played some of the music for me that these guys were making and recording, and some of the songs I really loved. I thought, man, that's got some potential there. And then he played some songs that I thought, I don't get it, right? And he said, well, Dad, we don't want to be sellouts and go all commercial. We don't want to be sellouts. And I said, well, let me tell you, buddy, there's one thing I can guarantee you. You will never sell out a venue if you want to take that approach, because you got to give them something memorable. You got to give them something to hum and to hang on to. Mm-hmm. And so in my world, in the world of film and television, I want to get every eyeball possible on these stories because I want to stir up cravings in everybody so that they will have conversations with people who love them, right, around the water cooler. Right? We don't have to hammer people over the head with what we believe. You just have to ask great questions and get them hungry for more conversation. But if we believe that this greatest cure in the universe that comes from faith in Christ, it is the cure for everything. We want to hand that to people, right? Not with a picture on an LED screen or on a wall, on a screen, or in a tract. Right? We want to hand it over flesh and blood. So what better way than to stir up cravings in somebody with good art and good storytelling and as many eyeballs as possible, and then have those people be chatting with one another around the water cooler. My pastor for 25 years was Rick Warren at Saddleback Church, and he told me, he said, Brian, if all you do is ask great questions, that's massive, because you will drive people to my door. I'll take them the rest of the way. Just ask great questions, because it stirs up those cravings in people and carves up the hard soil so that the seeds can be planted and so harvest can come. And so I totally believe that. I'm not saying that some films or some TV shows can't lead people all the way, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, get them saved, get them, sanctified. Sometimes that can work. We did in the Case for Christ. We were able to do that, and I think with some integrity. But most of the time, I think it's all about stirring up those soul cravings.
So in your TV series, When Calls the Heart, what do you hope to ultimately accomplish with that? What mark do you hope to make on people?
I want for a community to be born. And it actually is already born, and it's like an infant now. But because all of these projects, movies, television shows, at some point they're going to end. But the legacy of When Calls the Heart is the hearties. It's not the show. I hope it goes on for 10 seasons. I hope it goes on for 20 seasons. Who knows? But those friendships that are growing around the world, in France, somebody sent me a video from France, from a Hearties party in France. They're all in a house watching the show together, having fellowship and making friends. If that's our legacy, I can die a happy man. Because it's not because I'm smart. It's because we found the secret sauce. We discovered it. We bumped into it, and we were able to convey that to people. And so I want the legacy of When Calls the Heart to be the hearties and the force of nature that they are in our culture. And I hope I hope for them that they will support great content, great faith and family content elsewhere. We actually lend them out to other great projects that we believe in and encourage them, right? Not everything qualifies, but there are plenty that do. And so we have a nonprofit called Hearties International, which is all about trying to promote patronage of more of other content, but beyond When Calls the Heart.
Well, there you have it.
There you have it.
I want to just go on record. I'm sure there are those of you who are listening right now who are going, hey, wait a minute. You did not ask the guy that produces When Calls the Heart about Lori Loughlin and this whole college bribery scandal, and how's that going to impact my favorite series, When Calls the Heart.
And trust us, had this happened before this interview, we would have. But this interview was conducted before the college scandal. I'm a little sad about this whole thing, David. She's Aunt Becky to me from Full House. And plus, I'm a hearty. I love When Calls the Heart. She has a very key role in this series that Brian has created.
So, Brian, if in fact Lori ends up going to prison or not available for shooting for a period of time, and by the way, I don't wish any bad thing on anybody. Not. Maybe it's just a misunderstanding. Let's keep that in mind. But I just want to volunteer Victoria Robinson to step into the role. I don't think that most people will even notice a difference.
Let me tell you something. I've been told many, many times that I look like Becky from Full House. So, Brian, God forbid if she's guilty, but if she is and you need a new storyline, I will step in. I can be her sister. I'll become the mayor and I'll run the restaurant. I can cook.
Now, we did reach out to Brian through his publicist, and I just want to say that we are friends with Brian. So we reached out to him because I really wanted to find out what in the world, on behalf of all of the fans of When Calls the Heart, because I know you're all thinking, what's going to happen to my series if they lock her up?
That's right.
Okay, so we did reach out to Brian through his publicist, and here's a direct quote. In all fairness, she said, I talked to Brian about the situation with Lori Loughlin, and given the news only happened yesterday, he says that it's too early to make any statements or project any implications on the show. He and the other producers are taking a no rush to judgment approach until the facts are in.
And in all seriousness, I just want to send my good wishes out to Brian, the whole cast of When Calls the Heart, because this cannot be an easy time for any of them. So whatever the outcome is, I really sincerely mean that.
I just love interviewing smart people.
I would go as far as to say, no offense, Mr. Sams, he might be just a little bit smarter than you.
Did you just say that?
I did, but I'm teasing you. You're one of the smartest guys I know.
Well, no, the really cool thing, when I get to interview guys like Brian, it makes me look smarter.
It does make you look smarter. And he is right on when he's talking about that watching TV together as a family is a lost phenomenon, because it is. You can't trust television anymore. I'm not going to have my granddaughter over, sit down on the couch and say, hey, let's turn on the tube. You can't do that. It's not just the shows. The commercials are even things that are so risque. You don't want anybody to see that's under the age of 13. So he's absolutely right. We are screaming for wholesome, good family television.
I really want to applaud Hallmark.
Yes.
Because, they have really stepped up their game.
They have. And David, can I just put this out there? When it comes to Hallmark Channel, please call me. I really want to be on one of your movies. That's on my bucket list. I'll walk a dog. I'll just be one of those people that walks by and or comes into the Christmas shop, especially those Christmas movies. My dream, honestly, you think I'm joking, is to be in one of those Hallmark movies. I figure if I don't have romance in my personal life, I can have fun and pretend. Because then Hallmark movies, you always get the guy.
So what would be let's talk about what would be your storyline. If somebody brought you a script and said, Victoria, we just think you're perfect for this, what would be the storyline?
It would be that woman who finds herself single later in life, who still has a lot to offer. She's still someone who takes care of herself and she believes in love, and she's been through a divorce, but it doesn't matter. She still believes in love and romance and in good marriages. And she works in a coffee shop. That would be me, making your calmer macaratis. I better learn how to say that first. And people come and they get their coffee, and then one day he walks in. And he orders a specialty coffee, and I make it better than anyone. We lock eyes. He keeps coming back for a couple weeks, and then we bump into each other at the library. Then we bump into each other at the theater, and he says, we got to quit meeting like this. And the rest is history. So it snows.
What you're
when
saying,
we kiss the first time, it starts snowing.
So what you're saying is your ideal dream matchup
Loves coffee.
is a stalker.
Hey, at this point, David, I'll take anything.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Speaking of stalking.
What? We're talking about Brian? Brian's not a stalker.
No, for those of you who just cannot get, we have got to let people in on a little secret.
Okay.
We've been holding back for a long time.
Okay.
And we had to just kind of like...
Have you asked me about this before? What is this? I'm kind of nervous. Again, you make me nervous a lot.
I think that's a good thing.
I never know what you're going to say.
How many guys make you nervous?
You make me nervous because you know a lot of my secrets. So I never know what you're going to reveal. So not a lot of people know them. What are we talking about? Which secret?
Well, we once a month do karaoke.
Oh, that's a good secret.
Right? Once a month we do karaoke.
Yep.
And I just think that we ought to have people just showing up.
They are. Have you seen how large our last group was?
Well,
I
know we get
growing.
I know we get a lot of people from Facebook, but we have never introduced this to our podcast audience.
But you do realize, I'm going to warn you, once we open this up, I told you this before when we opened it up on Facebook. Once we do that, we don't get to sing 10, 15 songs a night.
Oh, yeah, we do, because...
there won't be time.
No.
Everybody's going to want to sing. That's the only bad part about inviting others and being all generous. Come have fun with us. Crap, I don't get to sing 10 songs now.
I'll just give the host an extra little tip, and she'll bump us up.
Oh, my gosh, David, I cannot believe you just said that. Do you realize FBI agents could be showing up at your front door, guns loaded? You cannot pay off a karaoke DJ to move us to the top of the line.
I just want to emphasize something here, and that is, as we move forward into the year 2019, we are going to step up our game here on CIA, Contagious Influencers of America, in so many ways. First of all, we are going to reveal something in a few weeks that no other podcast in the world is doing right now.
None.
Zero.
And I don't even know.
You have a little idea. For one thing, you and I are going to be doing another podcast in addition to CIA.
Yes,
right?
We are. That's right.
And it is basically going to feature our life as we don't know it.
As we're still trying to navigate
As we're still trying to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really for folks who are in our position.
Right.
Right.
Which is in our 50s, finding ourselves single, dealing with all of that kind of life, empty nesters, the kids are gone, having relationships now with adult children rather than smaller children that you used to could tell what to do for 18 years of their life. And now they're saying, stay out of my business. I mean, there's a transition that takes place with that. So there are a lot of struggles at our age, but there's also a lot of positives as well, David. I mean, if we're honest, we can come and go as we please. We don't have to worry about whether we can do this or do that because we have small children at home who are starting school. And I think we can have more mature relationships with our children. And those are also important. So we're going to cover a lot of stuff.
Yeah, this is really going to be about our journey as we kind of work through this. You know, we want to share ideas, what we're going through, also what a lot of you are going through.
And we want to hear from you as well. And we want to talk about those subjects, things you maybe are struggling with. If we're not talking about them, we want to be. So that's something else we're going to do is open it up to you letting us know what kind of subjects you want us to cover.
So that's just a little bit of a tease. We'll tell you more about it in the weeks ahead. It's going to be a lot of fun. And also there's going to be a very unique video element to this that is
like no other.
And by the way, that's what I'm talking about. It's not been done before. Obviously, the podcast has. I mean, there's over 600,000 podcasts now, by the way. Can you believe that?
That's crazy.
600,000.
But this one's going to stand out
And
above the rest.
I'm sure by the time this gets released, there'll be 700,000.
True.
Everybody's doing a podcast
Every
now.
single day, there's a
Right?
new one.
You know, it's amazing. I don't know if I have time to like watch TV anymore. There's so many good podcasts.
Yeah, that's a good point.
There's so many great voices out there, people who never had a voice before. And I'm sure that we have listeners who are thinking about having a podcast. You know, everybody has a unique voice.
They do. Everybody has something to say. I don't believe that there's not one person on this planet that doesn't have something to say.
Believe me, if I can be in a podcast, you can too. I had no clue that I was going to be doing this a year ago or 2 years ago.
Yeah, me neither. This thing, we're talking about podcasts and telling our stories. That's what I liked about this interview with Brian. He talks about how we need to be storytellers. That's what we all long for. And I believe facts tell. And you can state facts all day long and they tell people certain things, but they can get boring. Stories sell. So whatever you're trying, I'm not talking about money, exchanging money. I'm talking about touching somebody's heart, changing and shifting the paradigm as to how they view something. Stories are what will move people. And that's why being a good storyteller is critical, in my opinion.
So for those of you who are stuck, I mean, we've all been there before. For those of you who are stuck and you're looking at life one way and you think, oh my gosh, is this all there is? We're going to start this new podcast to really, we're going to find, you know, what life's all about.
Yeah, I think it's going to be
Look at things
therapeutic for
differently.
us as well.
I would just encourage you to think about what you have to say. You know, what's in that unique voice of yours that you want to share with other people. Do consider looking at doing a podcast, writing a book. You know, by the way, everybody can write a book now. I mean, it's like not a big deal.
At least start with journaling.
At least start.
Even journaling is so, it's just cleansing for your spirit. So there's so many different things we'll cover. And we're only doing it to not just help you guys, but honestly, even to help ourselves.
I'm doing it to get a date. You know, if it's
You
like,
do everything to get a date, including singing Islands in the Stream at karaoke night.
Listen, I just want to once again emphasize, I say this all the time, but sometimes I just have to remind myself that I'm a chameleon. And if you're not a chameleon, you're a dinosaur. If you're not willing to change and be purple one day, yellow one day. I mean, I believe in consistency, but I believe in today's world, things are moving so quickly, so rapidly with technology and artificial intelligence and everything else. You've got to get your head out of yesterday.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
And that's why I always say that, you know, for so much of my life, I lived it in black and white. Everything was, this is the rule book. Right. And then one day I just decided, you know, the heck with living it in black and white. God didn't make the world in black and white.
He sure didn't. Look outside.
Look outside. There's just so much more to life if you live it in living color, which is what I choose to do. And that's what we are going to attempt to do more of here on this podcast, is to give you the tools to look at things differently.
Yeah.
You know, I love that interview we recently did with Andy Stanley. He looks at doing church differently.
Absolutely. He's shaking things up. And that's what Jesus did that. Jesus came here and shook things up.
Exactly.
So why not an Andy Stanley? Why not a David Sams? Why not a Victoria Robinson? Why not a you?
And on that note,
We'll see
I
you
think
next
it's time to go to karaoke. We have a big karaoke in just a little bit.
We do.
And
Oh. I'm practicing.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
Oh,
I'm going to sing some more Gladys Knight.
the voice of an angel. By the way, either the dogs are barking outside or there's sirens. You hear that?
I actually hear them right on cue.
We'll see you next time here on CIA Contagious Influencers of America.